Hey there, it's Bobby Legs. Welcome to another episode of Bobby Legs Loves Watches. Now, this may be a long-winded video or short-winded video. Who knows? It depends how I get through it. So every morning, I go on to monochromewatches.com to get the latest news, either new watches that have come out, reviews on those watches, or topical discussions that may interest me. And this morning there was part of the editorial section. Is there an editorial section for Monochrome? Anyway, are watches a good investment? And just to give a little bit of context here, I'm going to try to speed this up. You may want to view this recording at 1.5 times speed. Remember a few years ago, we were stuck at home for a while because of certain things that were happening that were beyond our control. And we're sitting in place, working from home. Not many of us were interacting with other people for a good while because we're trying to protect each other. Whatever, however you say it, I don't care what your position on that was or not. But there was a time we all can admit that we were kind of more homebound than we were outbound, right? And for me, as a person who was interested in watches, I had a channel. I still do, obviously, and in part of a watch community. I was consuming a lot of watch content, and I was developing friendships via online with people in the watch community, joining different Discord servers, having live streams where people were getting together and talking, and basically making do and doing the best that we could, right? And I remember when that situation first happened, there was a lot of uncertainty. Stock market took a dip, eventually came back up. Government started printing money to support the economy because a lot of people, especially like in the service industry, for example, restaurants were closed, and those people who were working there needed some support. We saw a huge influx of capital into the economy, into people's wallets, and it really, as a watch collector and somebody who was observing the watch community, it really poured gasoline on collecting. A lot of people were buying watches. The groups that I was in, people were buying watches hand over fist. What the timing on with certain brands, like a brand like Rolex, who were making it a little bit more difficult for the average person to could just come in and go buy a watch. Right now, this situation that happened with the world really poured gasoline on that too, and you saw people selling particular models, and I'm going to use Rolex as an example, like the GMT or the Daytona, two, three, four, 5 times what they were at MSRP. And there was a good time when that was the expectation, right? If you wanted the latest um, uh, um, Daytona, good luck, right? But you're going to have to pay for it, or you're going to wait like for 5 years. We heard nightmare stories about waiting lists and whatnot. Um, and so that was going, and people were starting to think of watches, right? Because people were flipping watches a lot, as almost like an asset class, right? As an investment, and it that thought of watches being an investment or potential investment really dominated conversations for a year or two, right? You couldn't even get enough of it. I mean, it's just like and then you had YouTubers out there, former dealers, who were saying that set up your family. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want their sicko fans to jam up my comments. But mentioning how you can set up your grandchildren or children for a life of wealth if you bought certain watches, and really financial advice was being strewn about like crazy. And the problem is with a lot of these people, I mean, there's no fiduciary responsibility to you, right? So if you buy into what they're saying, you can get yourself into some trouble. Instead of like using typical avenues of asset acquirement for investing, like homes, or I mean real estate, stocks and whatnot, gold or whatever you chose, even crypto, Bitcoin, right? There's a risk associated with that as well. Um, but that conversation I felt in regards to watches as investments has slowly been dying a slow. I mean, like we don't really talk about it that much, at least in the groups that I'm in anymore, because things have come down to pre-pandemic expectations, right? The watch, it's not that the watch market took a downturn, it just came back to normal. Um, with a very few exceptions, watches were never seen as investments, right? They were a luxury item to be had if you could afford it, and it is what it is, almost akin to a car, buying a new car and then immediately losing some money as soon as you go off the lot, right? And nobody that I knew of was thinking it that way. Maybe certain individuals, high net worth individuals who can afford some of these more rare pieces. That was part of their calculus when they bought watches, but uh, but that was pretty much it, right? Um, and now we have this article coming out, and I just can't believe we're still talking about this. I can't believe we're still talking about watches as a potential investment here. And of course, the editorial board who they put in their little financial advising saying that they're not financial advisors, yet they seem to be manufacturing this conversation out of nowhere because I feel like this conversation is a dead conversation, right? Going perusing down the article, like most investments, it'll be challenging to make money in short-term on watches. I mean, we all know that. We all know that there might be a short-term or medium-term bump in some of them, but long-term, does it even out over time the pricing? And of course, they throw in some charts here, and that's great, but here's the thing. Here's the problem that I've had with this argument since the get-go. In general, you see here reading the big three: Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet have consistently been the brands with the highest value retention. And why that is still true, the ability for your average middle class person like me who's into watch collecting to get access to any of these potential investment grade models from Rolex and Patek Philippe or Audemars Piguet it's near zero. It's near zero, right? The same goes for a few brands or specific watches in limited supply. Think high-end independents, FP Journe, Rezepi, and Akari Vuonlainen. And so, yeah, okay, there is still that potential for investment grade models in these brands. But the problem is for me, when you write an article and you have people from all socioeconomic statuses, reading these things, right? Just because I'm a watch collector doesn't mean that I'm a high-end watch collector. It doesn't mean that I can afford any of these pieces or even have the fortune to be able to even get the call, right, and say, "Hey, this piece is available." Um, People from all aspects of the economy are reading this, right? So when you have this when this discussion is being discussed, right, or when you write an article like this, um, you have to do a better job than just saying this is not financial advice. You have to do a better job than saying that the only thing that we can tell you that if you're eyeing watches to turn a profit, you should take the time to examine and understand each acquisition before committing the hard-earned money. You have to inform people that this is not for everybody. Okay, if you want to invest and you need some advice, here in the States, we have financial advisors who are certified, who have a fiduciary responsibility to you, who, if they give you bad advice and you can prove that it's bad advice, there are repercussions, there are fines, they can lose licenses. That's the kind of sort of extent that if I was writing an article like this, so first of all, I wouldn't be writing an article like this because I feel like that's a dead conversation, but or it's not as important as it was maybe a couple of years ago. But I would go to painstaking length to warn about the downside of investing in watches and expecting, you know, a rate of return that is going to probably exceed, um, anything that you can expect from a S&P fund. So anyway, I just can't believe we're still talking about this. Let me know what you guys think. Please put a comment below. Let me know. Do you think watches are still a good investment? Even if they are, you know, let's be realistic. Most of us will never have the opportunity to get a Nautilus at retail price because that's where you need to be. Okay. You can't buy these watches in the secondary market, pay 2 or 3 times what they're worth, and then hold on to it and expect for a great rate of return. The rate of return is already built into that price to the person who's selling it to you. Okay, you have to be of the right fortune, of the good fortune, to get these pieces at retail, because then that's where you can realize the bulk of the rate of return, right? And if you want to set up your family, you have to have 10 Daytonas, not just one Daytona. One Daytona is not going to send your kids to college, or your grandkids to college, or all of them to college. You need to have 10 Daytonas, right? Who among us are going to get 10 Daytonas at retail? Not many, very, very few. Anyway, like I said, if you have any comments, please put it below. Love to have a great discussion on this, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.